We got there in the end. This is Hiko Simon. This is Tokyo Tonight. I have a backup camera set up tonight just because the last few weeks I seem to have had trouble where my camera would freeze like partway through. I'm looking at a beautiful new screen at the moment that I'll talk about during the show when it starts. The mic wasn't plugged in. I just realized that at the last minute. I don't need this anymore. I'm going to take that out. How's it going, everyone? Hope you're doing well. Good to see you all. Great to see so many people in the chat already. Sorry, I took a bit of time rocking in and setting up. Just one of those weekends. Hope everybody's good. Hope everybody's avoiding the Rona and everything else. It's good here in Tokyo. It's still, numbers are kind of just slowly getting less. They're still not really great, but still. Yeah, you know, we had our first taste of the kind of hot, humid. Yeah, there's no really great season. You know, the idea that Japan has 4 seasons this week, it was like crazy hot and humid, then it was like dry and cold and raining, and we're about to hit rainy season, and then we'll have the unbearably miserable humid summer. There's just nothing really to look forward to weather-wise in Tokyo really until about October. Yeah, it is nice to at least be warm again. I went and put away the humidifier, but then I had to almost take it out again the other day. But yeah, we are enjoying spring. Hanami's pretty much over now. The cherry blossoms are gone, but I've enjoyed running without it being too hot. That won't last for too long. But yeah, great to see everybody here in the chat already. Let's go through and say hello to all of the people. We've got Kerberos Tenchi, who is first, who gets the prize, which is that you get to be first. And Shubas gets the second prize, obviously. Second, good to see you. Buenos dias, Shubas. Hope you're enjoying some nice Panamanian coffee there. We've got Ed Avoid. Good morning, Arizona. Good to see you. Ben Duncan. Hey, indeed. Great to see you. We've got Quint Ranked. Hi. Are we experiencing technical features? We are indeed. You got it exactly right. Great to have you as always, Quint Ranked. We've got, who else we got in here? Sainted Sir, 0930 in New York. Wow, okay, that's a pretty good time. Good morning, New York. Great to have you in here. Kerberos Tenchi, Squirrels, indeed. Also, everybody do what Sainted Sir did. Well, Sainted Sir is also no doubt liked and subscribed, so do all of that good stuff and at least leave a like. I do appreciate that. But also, if you want to get my attention, just say my name, spell it correctly, Hiko Simon. You don't even need the @ mark, and it will flash orange like that. And if it does that, you will get my attention, and then I will either read your comment out loud and react to it, or if it's a question, I will respond. And I love that part of the show, so please do feel free to do that. We've got Aaron, our wonderful moderator, is in here. Bada boom. Peanut. Thank you. I feel very heavily rewarded at the moment, so thank you for that. Bada bong. Bada boing, who knows? Yeah, different state, not legal here. We have lots of thumbs up. Ben Duncan, I don't smoke, but you know, he would if I handed him a bada bong. Kligba, I have no idea who you are, Kligba, but great to have you with us. Where are you from, Kligba? Leave that in there. It's always nice to see a new name. We've got Giancarlo Lanoy, our Philippines representative. Excellent to have you with us. Andrea Moboya, happy Easter indeed. Sound not great? Is my sound not great, really? That's disturbing. I wonder if it's picking up the sound from a different source. Now you've got me... now you've got me paranoid. Sound not great on the mic. Okay, I'll check that. The thing is moving, so I assume that you can hear me, but we'll find out about that anyway. BTC Chiba, great to see you. DJ Sunny Side Up, I can't believe. DJ Sunny Side Up, you have to tell me, you remixed Poye from Patea Maori Club as your last song. I saw it come up like at 1 o'clock in the morning last night. And I was like, what? How can you be doing, like, how does anyone outside of New Zealand know about Poye? Poye would be like the national anthem. We'd be happy. It was like the 1980s, you know, most popular. It's like, it was #1 in New Zealand for ages and no one else in the world has ever heard of it. It's just, it's basically a Maori performance group from the 1980s just did a pop song, like when breakdancing music was just coming out. I mean, this is like 1982. This is like Grandmaster Flash type timing. But in New Zealand, where I lived, and the town's exactly like Patea, where that was filmed, kids were bringing linoleum mats to school and ghetto blasters, and they were imitating the breakdancing movies and stuff from America. So just like in America, particularly the Maori really adopted the breakdancing culture and stuff. And I was just in a school where I was just about the only I was like the whitest kid at my school. Which is why when I was watching DJ Sunny Side Up's remix video, which he put onto YouTube, check out his channel if you want to hear the song that I'm talking about. It's got in the recommended videos on the side, it's got the original Patio Maori Club Poye song, which is just as the video. The original music video is really cool. It's just, it's like a Maori cultural group, but there's like breakdancing and stuff in the background. And then I didn't know that Taika Waititi 10 years ago made a movie called Boy that I've not seen, that apparently has wonderful ratings, where that's like the theme music, and it's set like in a town exactly like my memories of hearing Poye when I went back to New Zealand. Like that was from 1984. I went back to New Zealand in 1985. So DJ Sunny Side Up, thank you. I mean, it's just it's something I never thought a non-New Zealander would ever do anything with. I have no idea how you found that to remix it, but it's great, isn't it? So anyway, very excited about that. Excellent as always to see you there, DJ Sunny Side Up. We've got who else we got in here? We've got Scented Oils. I didn't quite catch that one. Yeah, Andrea Morboy, a school term break there. Yay, really. Indeed, Queen Olga of Kiev, Slava Ukraine. Yes, indeed. Yeah. You know, screw the invaders. All the way with you there, Queen Olga. Funny thing as well, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's funny I do that. Anyway, I won't go into it, but yes, I actually would love to go to Ukraine someday. I've got probably my three greats a long way back. My three greats. Grandfather was from Behorsk in Crimea, among other things, which is obviously now very complicated. Some were from Kiev as well. There were some Kiev people as well, but a long time ago for me. But yeah, sound is echoing. No way, Do. The sound is echoing. Are there two mics on? Oh, there are two mics on. Thank you, Aaron. This should be better now. I just turned one of them off. I didn't realize two of them were picking up. I thought it wasn't picking up my Yeti mic. And so I installed the second one. Okay, that should fix the echoing. Hopefully that's better now. Please, someone confirm, please, in the chat that the mic is no longer echoing. Thank you for that. Glad it was during the welcomings as well. It sounds mono as opposed to stereo. Andrea Morboy. Okay, well, hopefully it's fixed now. I hope that's better. It is showing like both channels, at least in my sound monitor. Dan H, how does the cheap yen help ordinary Japanese person at the moment, considering Japan isn't self-sufficient on imports and imports a lot of their food? Dan H, well, the simple answer is it doesn't. It helps the simple Japanese person like myself that once worked for an American company and has lots of American dollars savings that I left in the bank in US currency for a rainy day, hoping that I might be able to convert it at a 20% premium, which I'm thinking about doing tomorrow. I just did a wee chunk yesterday just to test it out. But yeah, now I am definitely going to convert my USD savings into yen. I don't think it really benefits. The only benefit of the US dollar of the cheap yen, in fact, let me just remember this. So that's right. It kind of sucks. It means you can't really travel. It means, that's right. It would only really be a benefit if you had tourists coming to Japan, which you don't. Of course, it helps exporters, technically. I think it makes Japanese cars going over to America cheaper or whatever. But that's obviously, again, trade is quite restricted at the moment, and Japan doesn't really make anything in Japan anymore. It actually manufactures in China, which having a cheap yen actually makes, even that reduces the value of that. It means they shouldn't have closed their factories in Japan. So right now, the 126 yen, which is one of the topics that I have tonight, by the way, is purely inflationary. It purely increases the cost of food, amongst all the other things happening at the moment, including, of course, the war in Ukraine, which is increasing grain prices and a lot of food prices in Japan. So there's basically no positive side to it at all, unless you're like me and have a lot of US dollar savings. So yeah, John Carlo, Illinois, just want to ask, how many percent are the Catholics here in Japan? I don't know the percentage, but it's super small. It'd be like probably 2 or 3%. In some parts of Japan, particularly in Kyushu, the southern main island of Japan, particularly in the north half of Kyushu, it's a very high. That was where they got the biggest foothold in Japan, and where the government really cracked down traditionally on the Catholics. Like Nagasaki is a huge Catholic city. It's weird in a way. Nagasaki was a secondary target. It was supposed to be Kyushu. Although Kyushu is also quite Catholic actually, but it's kind of weird that like the most Christian city in Japan was the one that the Americans A-bombed. Taro Aso, controversial former prime minister and still senior person in the LDP in Japan, is from Kitakyushu, and he is a famous Catholic and from a very wealthy family. So the culture, the Catholic culture in Japan is actually noticeable if you go down into Nagasaki and Fukuoka and Kitakyushu. But throughout Japan, it's quite low. I have Catholic friends, actually, Japanese Catholic friends, but most of them have some sort of international background to that. So yeah, thank you for asking, Carl. That's as far as I know. I'm not an expert at all, of course. Kligba from Norway, great to see you. Watch me back when I started. Glad to see I'm still going strong. Hey, I got nothing better to do. You still, oh whoa, no way. You've still got your orange Tokyo Tonight shirt. That is nice. And from Norway, I dig everything about that. Kubra Senshi says less than 1%. Is it less than 1%? No, maybe it is less than 1%. It's a small percentage. DJ Sunny Side Up is a follower on Twitch, is from New Zealand and suggested that. Well, that's a good suggestion. I'm glad you liked the track. I'm really glad that you used it. Like I say, it's just one of those things. It's like you're suddenly talking to me in a New Zealand accent that's like flawless all of a sudden using that track. It's a great track. Better, yes, thank you for all the confirmations that the sound is better now. Did I watch the Rick Rubin interview with Lex Friedman, asks DJ Sunny Side Up. I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about. Rick Rubin, he's a music guy. Oh, I feel like I need to check this now. I will check this. Let me just put this up in my browser. Oh, if I put this up in the browser, it'll get captured on screen. So, okay, I'll copy that and I'll save that for later. Maybe if I put it in my notepad. There we go. I will look that up later. Thank you for the tip, DJ Sunny Side Up. And Queen Olga of Kiev, once we're done effing up the Russian bear, come visit. Yeah, I would love to. Thank you for the great content. I feel warmly invited. You might know, actually, I plan to go to Salina, which is like as close in Romania to Ukraine as you can get. It's in the Danube Delta. Maybe you know about that area. My family's from Galatz anyway, so close by. And I've actually been right up to the Ukraine border before, but now I've found some links over across the border in Odessa, Kiev, and Crimea. So yeah, I would love to go when things settle down. And certainly I really, really hope that the whole international community piles money into rebuilding Ukraine and just turning it into a place that, Russia will not be able to screw with like this ever again. But also, it'd be great. It'd be a good opportunity to get Ukraine into the EU and really build it up. So I would love to go and check that out when that happens. It's a beautiful part of the world. Not that much, Jess. Good to see you. Who else we got in here? Tai Nakamura. So, yeah, good to see you, man. Good morning. Great to see you in there. We've got Dan H. What can you tell Tokyo Marine as a company? Well, I used to work there. What do you mean? You misspelled Tokyo. So you did spell Tokyo correctly. Tokyo Marine, that's right. So Dan H., I'm not sure I understood the phrasing there. What can you tell me about Tokyo Marine as a company? I haven't worked there since 2006. I worked there for 4 years. I worked in the risk management division there as a policy consultant for the government in a think tank. It's a very, 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 very Japanese company. It's a very traditional Japanese company. It was great training for being able to handle any situation in Japan working there. That and working at a Japanese IT company as an engineer pretty much was about as indoctrinated as you can get. I was like the only foreigner in the building. There was another foreigner who joined my company in time, and he ended up with a stomach ulcer from all of the stress and hazing and bullying that he got. And the only difference between him and me was that he was a better guy than me. If my boss gave me a hard time, I would leave. I would go home early. I'd walk up to the park, whereas that guy just sat there and took it. But it's a good company. I mean, what can I say? It's a very domestic life. They're a property non-life insurance company, but they have almost no presence outside of Japan. When I was there in 2006, they were looking at their first outside investments, and I was really realizing that, Tokyo Marine would have no ability to operate outside of Japan, really. There's no, although of course through reinsurance, they do have a lot of ties. Tokyo Marine basically, through cross reinsurance in the back end, if there's ever floods in Europe, it's Tokyo Marine that ends up paying for it. And likewise, Munich Re and so on, that end up paying for earthquakes in Japan. So, they have that sort of back end involvement on the financial markets. But it's a very, very, very traditional Japanese company. Very rigid. Couldn't wear a collared shirt, even a tie with too much yellow. I got in trouble for once. All sorts of stuff. But yeah. I mean, that said, it was good experience. I valued it. I would have even stayed there longer if they'd let me move to the legal team, but they didn't. So I left, and that ended up being a good thing. But yeah, I had a good time there. I don't know if that's answering your question, Dan H. Feel free to ask more questions if you want to, but that's my time there. Wow, more people. Mitchman too. Yo, good to see you. Tudon, great to see you from Islamabad. No way. Great to see someone from Islamabad in here. That is awesome. My dad was in the army when I was a kid, and in staff college in Australia. I remember we actually had Indian and Pakistani officers' kids at the same training school as my dad. And I stayed in touch with a friend from Rawalpindi for a couple of years after, anyway. But man, I would love to visit one day. In fact, yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, okay, I think we're caught up on comments. If you haven't said hello yet, please do. I just love saying hello to everybody. It is great to see you all. Also, remember to leave a like if you like. Or certainly wait to the end and judge and like if you like. But I do appreciate all of that stuff. It's good that the video is actually working this week. And yeah, let's dive into the topics. It's 10:53. Yeah, not so much to talk about, but you know how it goes. I'm still going to run out of time anyway. First story, interesting one here. 63% of people with foreign roots in Japan questioned by police, and this probably includes people who look non-Japanese, might be half or whatever. That's a very, very high percentage. There is a funny thing, which is going to be a theme on the show tonight, that I have been questioned, and this is like within the last 5 years is the criteria that they're using. I have been questioned by the police once. I've been ID'd once. That was in Shibuya when I was on a bicycle. In the middle of the night, my light was broken. So they checked the ID of my bicycle, that it was mine. and it was. And that was the only time I've been pulled over in 23 years. Partly, I guess, partly because I don't go out drinking. I don't go into areas where police are to be checked in the first place. Might have something to do with it. But certainly there is no question that different foreigners get treated differently. Caucasian foreigners, although that said, I do know lots of, I actually know investment bankers who bicycled into work on the same road on Yasukuni-dori and got pulled over like multiple times every week, sometimes even by the same cop who knew what they were, so they knew that they were messing with them. So it's not necessarily that you get like diplomatic immunity being white, but there's no question that white people and well-dressed people and so on definitely do get a pass that other people get a harder time. And so even though I am in the very lucky 37% that haven't been stopped or questioned by the police in the last 5 years, I don't take that for granted or representative of what the general experience is in Japan. Visibly foreign people, police, just out of honestly having nothing to do. When the New York Police Commissioner visited the Tokyo Police and asked them what do your police spend most of their day doing in terms of a breakdown by time, like what tasks do they spend the most time on, and the Tokyo Police Commissioner responded, mostly filling out lost umbrella forms was the response. That apparently stunned the New York Police Commissioner. But if that's what you're doing, I mean, if it's between asking random foreign-looking people for their ID and filling out lost umbrella forms, it's probably marginally more interesting. You might at least find out. I mean, the umbrella's probably not going to have an interesting story, and there's almost no chances at all that they're going to solve a crime or anything. I think it is a requirement. It is a legal requirement, I believe. I'm not the best expert on this, but you are supposed to carry your foreign registration card at all times. Even me as a permanent resident have to do that. So there is a thing that police can lawfully, I believe police can lawfully ask you to produce your ID at any time, and if you don't have it, a passport. So it's kind of a power they have to stop and search people, and clearly they do it just for the way that people look sometimes. And I mean, police are police like everywhere. Sometimes they just act like dicks. I've had a pretty good run. I'm curious, people in the chat, when you've been in Japan, if you are of foreign roots, have you ever been stopped by the police? I've been lucky, but certainly this does happen. And the U.S. Embassy actually, as this points out, this is from the Mainichi, a Japanese news source, pointing out that the US Embassy actually put a warning out about this, particularly about African American residents of Japan getting particular harassment from the police. And when they said that the police were carrying out racial profiling checks, it actually caused a kind of sensitive response from the Japanese embassy. But I think no question that there are bored racist police who are just picking out people, and maybe disproportionately picking out people of color. Certainly, I mean, it's weird that I have no doubt that they treat Caucasian people better than they treat Asian people, for example. If you're Asian and visibly foreign, yeah, they're likely to do that. And yeah, it's good that the U.S. Embassy called it out just to make sure that they're not doing it to pass the time or as a substitute for filling out a lost umbrella form. But that is a thing that is definitely happening. DJ Sunny Side Up, you've been questioned by police when riding your bike last year. They said they were just checking because they'd heard of bike stealings. It's like hearing about umbrellas going missing in Japan, frankly. I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, look, I got pulled over in the same circumstance, but I guess that's it. It's the substitute for filling out a lost umbrella form is pulling over a foreigner on a bicycle to check if it's really theirs. And that's it. I've met foreigners. Well, I've met Japanese people, even like well-to-do Japanese people who like think nothing about stealing someone's bicycle, which I couldn't believe. But yeah, Sainted Sir, sorry you've got to go, but having Easter with the family. Happy Easter there indeed. Oh, that reminds me. This week, of course, Japan doesn't do Easter, so congrats if you're celebrating. I mean, it sounds weird to say congrats on Easter because we don't have it here. It makes me think about more of what it is. In New Zealand, it's a public holiday as it is in Australia. And I think British Empire countries, Church of England or whatever, there's no separation of church and state, so it's perfectly okay to have Easter as a public holiday, which most of those Commonwealth countries do. So I think my mum asked me, hey, why doesn't Japan have Easter? I was like, why would Japan have Easter? Why doesn't Australia have a holiday for Ramadan? I mean, I mean, in some ways, of course, obviously, it would be a perk if we had been colonized here in Japan. But I must admit, and other people were saying this week, but Japan celebrates Christmas, in which I kind of took at face value that, sure, there's Christmas trees everywhere and stuff, but it's kind of a date night. But then I realized, no, they don't. There's no public holiday for it. And again, it would be weird. But if they were going to adopt a holiday, I mean, Christmas makes sense. It's a celebration of a birth. That makes sense, Easter I mean, again, thinking about the very first missionaries coming and, essentially being salespeople of Christianity in Japan and being successful. There were a lot of Catholics, particularly in Kyushu, so much so that the shogunate cracked down on it. But, the crucifixion and the Easter story is a very, very big part of the religion. But it strikes me as a hard sell. Why would you... Celebrating, not only are you celebrating, your God, I mean, Son of God, essentially, Messiah is essentially the Trinity and all of that. It is essentially God being, executed and coming back to life. I mean, suppose it's got a happy ending. And the way it got mixed in with the pagan stuff. So you've got the squirrels, not the squirrels, the rabbits. Squirrels are a regular feature for throughout the year, but the chocolate and the bunnies and the executions and the reanimation and everything. It's so they tortured the guy. They strung him up on two planks so everybody gets a chocolate rabbit. I don't know how you explain that as a ceremony. Plus, of course, the fact that it moves, so of course it's hard. You can't schedule it on a fixed date like you can other vacations. It's just not as convenient, I suppose. So, no, we don't have it in Japan. And I must admit, somebody told me, well, if you don't have it in Japan, make sure you have some chocolate. Well, again, I do that all the time anyway. But I did have some, not really Easter chocolate, but yeah, it was enjoyable doing that part of it. I hope the hot cross buns as well. I mean, again, the hot cross buns, I love hot cross buns. It was a highlight in New Zealand, eating, too many hot cross buns and, basically injuring myself. But again, the hot cross buns, when you think about it, the cross is the crucifixion. That's what, that's what Jesus was nailed to. And everybody celebrates it by eating delicious buns in that shape. It doesn't make sense. But yes. Anyway, happy Easter if you're celebrating it. And, in whatever way. It's mostly become, I guess, a non-religious thing for a lot of people. Of course, it's a very religious festival, not celebrated here at all. So I there's nothing to indicate that it's going on, unlike Christmas or whatever. Hey, it could be the next big thing. Who knows? Have a great Easter there, Sainted Sir. I think that was the point. DJ Sunny Side Up, 11 p.m. on a countryside road, night before going over a bridge over the best rover mouth surf break. So they couldn't see me till they came up close. So not racially profiled. Yeah, same. I mean, They might have seen I was a foreigner, and that might have just added to their certainty that it was a good idea to pull me over. But I was bicycling late at night, and it was dodgy, and my light was turned off, so that definitely worked. Setsuna, great to see you, Setsuna. Thank you for saying hello. I do appreciate it. Cobra Stenchi, I have been stopped 3 times by police in Japan in my 3 years. Nothing too bad. Once in Akiba, once in Kinchijo. You mean Kichijoji? Kinshicho, maybe. And once in Uisudani. Wow, you're hanging out in some sketchy neighborhoods, dude. 2 of those times was while wearing a kilt. I'm surprised you weren't just turning yourself in that case. Yeah, that makes complete sense. You can't stay for the live, but you'll watch the video later. Thank you, Setsun. I do appreciate it. And thank you for dropping in and leaving a comment there. Wingstar, Christos Haryav I Merilots. Oh, did I say that correctly? I was just literally reading it off the screen. Armenian greeting for Easter. He is risen. Nice. Christos Haryav I Merilots. I hope I said that right. Well, and same back to you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Japan turns the Easter Bunny into the Easter Cat. Yeah, maybe it'll become another date night or something. Who knows? It'll be like a 4th, like, white day. I find it very hard to keep up. Window Licker, that is a strange name. But yes, we've got Andrea Morbo. Good excuse to eat more butter. Indeed. That's a good point. Now that you mention the butter, that's right. That's the thing. You heat up the hot cross buns. You put butter on it. I mean, that's like the best. That's like the best religious thing of all. Yeah. Now I miss it. Now you made me miss it. There. It's the chocolate you can have all year round, but the hot cross buns, I must admit. Thank you, Wingstar. I guess being in Japan maybe helps with the pronunciation. So, yeah. Anyway, Cobra Stenchi lived in both Kinshicho and Uguisidani for a while. Sakura House had rooms there for foreigners, relatively cheap. That's why. Yeah, I know people who lived in Uguisidani. It's a nice neighborhood. I actually know someone who lived there, and said it's kind of one of those hidden gems. People think of it as a rough, sketchy neighborhood, but it's actually got lots of nice restaurants, and, people don't realize. And that's true, but it's also got a bunch of, dodgy love hotels, and that person ended up getting followed a couple of times from the station by dodgy guys, and so even though she loved it and she stood up for the neighborhood, yeah. But a Sakura House, I get it, makes sense. Can always make my own, Andrea Boboy. Yeah, I guess I could. That sounds like a lot of work, though. Next story, Japan eyes quasi-refugee status for people fleeing conflicts. I.e., I didn't know that, so I learned something. I learned that Caucasian people can be referred to as quasi-people, it seems. Essentially, they're trying to figure out how they can reject every legitimate refugee from every conflict in the whole world, and only let in 20 refugees a year. And then all of a sudden, when it becomes politically and security treaty fashionable to let in Ukrainian people who definitely deserve to be recognized and let in as refugees, all of a sudden we're going to let them all in and we're going to recognize all of them. And Japan has to figure out, how does it explain this double standard where it's only recognizing these European refugees and not the Myanmarese refugees, not the Syrian refugees, not the Iraqi refugees, not the Afghan refugees, not the Central African Republic or Democratic Republic of Congo refugees, not the Rwandan refugees. You can be refugee. They're all exactly the same as, the Georgian, the Armenian, the Azerbaijan, wars going on everywhere. Refugees coming out of 59 conflicts happening in the world right now. And it's only with Ukraine that the Japanese government actually does what they should do. But of course, because that example is now so out of step with the way it treats every other refugee, they want to call them quasi-refugees, when in fact, they're just refugees. And Japan should have been treating them all the same as this all along. I guess baby steps. I mean, look, if this gets Japan into the habit of actually meeting its obligations as a UNHCR, I forget the exact treaty, but they actually have legal obligations to give refuge like every other country in the world does. And heaven forbid, one day Japanese people might be looking for refuge outside of Japan. And, imagine if they got treated the same way that Japan treats other countries. That's why you accept people. So I've gone on about this before, but the fact that now they are looking to create a separate status. But I'm really curious how they're going to justify treating, because clearly it's going to be they're going to be trying to come up with a justification to treat Ukrainian, blonde-haired, blue-eyed refugees as different to refugees from other countries, to fit into this quasi status. And I don't know how they're going to be able to create a definition that isn't going to work like in every other country with a conflict around the world. The Yemeni refugees, what do you do? So, and the PM should envision a system that definitely would not discriminate against certain countries. Why would you say that? It's like the person who says, "Hi, I'm the Prime Minister of Japan. My name's Kishida, and I'm definitely not racist, and this rule is definitely not discriminating against anybody." The moment you lead off by saying that, you know that that's exactly what it's doing. So there's clearly a big double standard. I mean, at the same time, they are doing, I mean, it's great that Japan is actually doing the right thing. I think, no question, they are doing this partly because the news coverage. Oh, you know what I should have shared? There is a tweet this week from the Ukrainian ambassador in Japan, which asked the question, who do you think, by percentage, is most responsible for the conflict in Ukraine? Russia, Ukraine, United States, and NATO. And out of, like, a bunch of countries surveyed throughout the world, including like the in the United States, there's like 20-30% of people think that America is partly to blame for the conflict in Ukraine. In Japan is, out of all countries surveyed, the most unambiguous. This is all Russia's fault, with Ukraine like zero, and NATO and America pretty much right beside Ukraine at the bottom. Like this is just Russia being bad. Some people are trying. I must admit, through the whole thing, a lot of people have been trying to see nuance around this and saying, well, Russia has a perspective on this as well. That Russia was feeling threatened by NATO, and like it was being encircled by NATO, and people promised NATO wouldn't expand east, and this is NATO creating an empire towards Russia, and Russia feels naturally like they have to defend their interests. And I get it. That's what Russia thinks, right? I mean, Russia is within its own, delusional world. They do have a logic to what they're saying. But truth is, Ukraine, NATO is a defensive alliance. Yes, they did attack Serbia over Kosovo, and yes, they attacked Libya. But basically, they're a defensive alliance. They don't go invading other countries, and countries that join it do not join it because they are being conquered by America or NATO. They join it because they're afraid of having exactly what's happening in Ukraine happen to them. And the idea of, stopping Finland, Sweden, the Baltic states, Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia, or anyone else joining NATO, they want to join because they don't want Russia to do exactly what it's doing and what it's done in multiple other former Soviet republics. So, yeah, Japan, the news coverage in Japan, and remember that Russia still occupies Japanese islands and, basically has a kind of, every time they try to negotiate, Russia says, well, don't forget who won the war. There's always been this kind of antagonistic relationship with Russia. So Japan just doesn't, Japan understands, they say lots of crazy stuff. It doesn't mean that they're right. The news coverage here is overwhelmingly sympathetic, and I think that's partly it's the one-sided view that this is Russia's the bad guy. Ukrainians are, should be left alone. That's unambiguous. It still has always been the leading story on the news every night here. So Japan really is arguably, according to the survey, even of European countries, even of America and so on, Japan is arguably, maybe outside of Poland, at least in terms of public opinion, the most supportive of Ukraine and the most against Russia and this whole thing. There was actually a story this week which was kind of ridiculous. The Russian embassy is in Ebisu, and because of that, there are actual signs in the train station in Ebisu in Cyrillic alphabet saying, this way to the Russian embassy. And apparently people were complaining that there were some Russian words in the station, and so the station covered it up, which then triggered another bunch of complaints that it's like discriminatory to cover it up just because it's Russian language. So they took it down again. So they took down the covering up. I agree. It's no. I mean, geez, half the people in Ukraine speak Russian, of course. So it's not a reason to boycott the Russian alphabet. Or language. That is ridiculous and going too far, but it does show the solidarity here. That said, I mean, what I hope is that this opens up Japan's eyes to sort of do its duty on other conflicts. But yeah, still terrible what's going on there. The story this week, I mean, I don't want to go too much into the Ukraine stuff because there's so much going on at the moment, of course, and it's not very Japan related, other than Japan is fully behind at the moment. That ship, the Moskva, catching fire and sinking, and the Ukrainians saying it was 2 cruise missiles that they fired, and the Russians said, Well, it caught fire and it sank. I mean, they make it sound like it spontaneously combusted. Romantic dinner gone wrong. If I had to choose the propagandist version of that story, I would rather say that the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet was sank by 2 cruise missiles than by a candlelit dinner that went wrong. But that seems to be the story that the Russians are going with. They seem to be retaliating right now, unfortunately. And this is the thing, as much as there are great to see small victories and wins, I mean, great to see Ukraine giving them absolute hell, which they deserve. At the same time, of course, that said, still horrible things going on, particularly in the East at the moment. And, I do think that we shouldn't be bystanders. The West, America feels like it's playing around a little bit, giving them drones and toys to test out to see if they can, so that they can test out their latest toys and weapons and stuff. And it looks like America's coming around now. They're giving them helicopters and tanks and stuff like that. And I think that's what's obviously now needed, or else there's going to be, look at what's happened in Mariupol. They can't let that happen. They can't let there be any more butchers. So I really hope that more support gets through, and real military support, not just thoughts and prayers. But it starts with this: the people who need refuge should be given refuge, and not just Ukrainians, but everyone else who needs it. So yeah. Anyway, I've been watching a lot of that this week. Russia's story on the ship sinking is an important lesson on Russia's relationship with the truth. And it is funny how Japan is just like, yeah, that's Russia. We know Russia. They're our next door neighbor. We've been dealing with their shit for decades. Nothing that they say is taken seriously. And I think that that's absolutely right. Quinn Rankid is part of Japan's wanting to allow Ukrainians and partially informed by the Kuril Islands. I think partially, or certainly Japan's mistrust of Russia is partially informed by that. I mean, ironically, that the people who Russia put on to live on the Kuril Islands to make sure Japan wouldn't take them back are like 60% Ukrainians that were deported by Stalin from Ukraine as punishment. They were sent to the Far East and they put them on these islands. So it's in a weird perversion of history. There's actually the inhabitants of those islands, many of them are victims of Stalin's own deportations of Ukrainians, where they sent them onto the Kuril Islands. So, I don't think it plays a strong part in it, but certainly it does play a part in Japan's understanding that, just Russia is a real politic country. It's not, you can't believe that they're going to do anything on principle. At least that's how things are seen here anyway. Udi Jr., you're late. No worries, you're early. You know what I'm like. I'm just chasing squirrels. Dan H sounds like a lot like the World War II and Japan's Yamato class battleship. Yeah. I mean, well, in the end of the day, what? Yes, exactly. Aaron, I won't read that out loud, but yes, that is funny. As Dan H pointed to, the yen is the highest or cheapest it's been in 20 years, basically since I got to Japan. I think I got to 125 about 20 years ago. And I remember that time because 2 years before that, with the currency crisis in the 1999, it dropped to 75 or something. In fact, and during the Hatoyama, during the Democrats in in 2012, it got down to 75 as well. So generally the yen should be around 108, 107. That's what it is normally to the US dollar. So right now it's 20% cheaper than it should be, which I think means that dollar goes a long way. If you want to come to Japan and if you can get into Japan when they start resuming tourism, everything is on a 20% off sale here in Japan at the moment. So it'll be great if you want to travel to Japan. This will make it even better. Your money will go a lot further here. And it's good for me having US stocks and some savings I've squirreled away. So that'll be good, but there's not really anything good about it for the Japanese economy. It imports, of course, all of its energy, it has to spend more yen to be able to buy imports. It has to buy energy. It has to import a lot of its food, grain prices, of course, with the grain shortages because of the Ukraine conflict, and of course the way it's disrupted the energy infrastructure, which has made prices go up anyway. It's having an inflationary shock on Japan, and the government's been aiming for good inflation. They've been aiming for inflation where employers pay people more, so people spend more, which drives prices up and creates a sort of a virtuous inflation cycle. This is a negative inflation cycle. People are still not getting any more pay, but prices are going up and the yen is not worth anything. So it's kind of a bad thing, and the government is watching it at the moment, but it's hard to see that they can really do anything about it. Japan's been printing money like crazy. Just trying to keep the currency sort of at a certain level, and they haven't been able to really control it. I'm just thinking keep printing money would make it cheaper, so it was the opposite problem before, I guess. But yeah, it doesn't affect life too directly, but if you're buying petrol at the moment, petrol everywhere is expensive, but in Japan it's been getting up to like 220 yen or something ridiculous in a lot of places. And food and grain is really expensive, so yeah, it's causing problems, no doubt. Quinn Rankin, maybe the Ukrainians on those islands would like to go home and fight against the people who abused their ancestors. Well, it's complicated, of course, but and remember, they're ethnic Ukrainians. So there's a difference between being ethnic Ukrainian or indeed ethnic Russian and being a citizen. Those ethnic Ukrainians, of course, can be drafted into conscripted into the Russian military, just like ethnic Russians in Ukraine could very well be, Ukrainian regular military as well. So, you have to, but there again, sure. I mean, these are all basically victims of the Holodomor, of that basically attempted genocide by the Soviet Union against Ukraine. Ukraine has a messed up history with Russia, particularly in the last century, and this is just an accentuation of that. But yeah. Anyway, so that's a thing that happened. Another thing that happened, speaking of 126, Japan is like, in the same way that I claim to be 185 centimeters by being 184.52 centimeters or something, Japan's population is barely holding on, 125.502 million people, down 644,000 from a year earlier. So Japan's losing like a city of 644,000 people like each year at the moment. The population, Japan is like next year, it's going to be basically, you're not going to be able to call it a 126 million person country anymore. It's going to be 125 million person country. And like it says down the bottom, oh, that's not it. But I think the projections that I've seen are that 30 years from now, the population could drop as low as like 80 million. This is, again, what people have always been told about the whole idea of the graying, the declining of the population becoming 50% elderly and retired. It's starting to really happen now. I mean, again, none of this is a surprise. This has been known for a long time. Interesting that the number of foreign nationals living in Japan dropped only 25,000. I guess people have been staying put like me to 2,722,000. That number obviously is going to go up, but it certainly isn't going to replace the population. So yeah, interesting times anyway. That this the demographic time bomb that people have been waiting for has definitely been happening. I mean, that's a very, very big city. I mean, that's bigger than like the second biggest city in New Zealand disappeared last year. So that's nuts. A lot of discussion this week about what is it? What's the Japanese title? Hajimete no Tsukai, or something. Hajimete no Tsukai, right? First Eren, which is like a show that's been on in Japan for like decades. And it's this show where they have these cute kids, normally like 3-4 years old, who, hitchhike for 20 kilometers to, go and set up an investment fund for their grandparents. Okay, not quite that sophisticated, but they do go a very long way, and they do tasks that, again, when you think about the helicopter parenting cultures that are becoming normalized in places like America and Australia, where they won't let a kid walk 10 meters up the road and Child Protective Services will get called in, if a kid does anything, on their own, and this idea that we're coddling children too much. This Japanese show sort of flies in the face of that and shows how kids in Japan, and of course there are kids who go to private schools and so on, like for elementary school, sometimes will commute like an hour on the train and do multiple train changes and so on. It's not common. It's in the cities for people to go that far. This show is mainly set in rural towns, and basically, it follows kids being told to go up to the shops and buy something and take it to grandma's house, and it'll be like a kilometer that they'll have to walk, and they'll have to do various tasks. And you watch, kids sort of sometimes get a bit lost and, get into trouble and so on. But a lot of people, apparently this is being, I haven't watched the Netflix version of this, but apparently this has been edited up and put onto Netflix, and people saying, wow, Japanese, society, they're bringing up kids the way they should be brought up, kicking them out of the house at 4 and making them get a job and figure life out, which is certainly how it looks, and it's an entertaining show. I wouldn't say I watched it directly. I've seen it a few times. I know what it is. It is entertaining. You watch kids crying, and you think, "Oh my God, is that okay?" Sometimes, But the thing is, what people watching Netflix don't realize, I'm assuming everybody who's watching the show knows enough about Japanese TV and Japanese culture to know that, first of all, Japan pioneered reality TV. Reality TV existed in Japan, like decades before it became a thing in America and elsewhere. And just exactly like reality TV, everything on Japanese TV, it's done very believably, and it's done very credibly, and it's very entertaining. And because it's in Japan, I guess people find it maybe like it's extra believable. It's all fake. It's all fake. Those kids are being led around. They're being told what to say. Even the getting lost and panicking bits are scripted. I mean, they're not exactly, I guess with kids, they're not exactly going to recite lines or anything like that. Maybe that's part of what makes it better. But two things. One, these are in rural towns where basically it is completely safe in the first place. And two, they wouldn't actually abandon these kids and use 1,000-yard sniper scopes to film them and watch them get run over by trucks. They wouldn't do that. This is all rigged, but it's showing. But I guess the premise of the show is still refreshing, particularly where people feel like the culture of coddling and not allowing kids, like driving kids right up to the school gate and not letting them walk anywhere or go anywhere or anymore. That culture feels like it's gone a bit too far. I know that feeling. That feeling existed even when I left for Japan, and I've heard that it's gotten worse. Again, I think people like to superimpose their ideals of how the world should be, and they see it in Japan. They say, "See, Japan is the perfect example of this." Like the white supremacists who believe that Japan has no Muslims. Japan has tons of Muslims. In fact, there was a story I saw today that Indonesia is actually setting up its own halal certification office in Japan just because there are so many Muslims here, Indonesian Muslims who want a familiar sort of a standard for it. So, but again, and that's a terrible example. But again, when there are people who think there's too much helicopter parenting, they look at the show and they say, "See, Japan, is the way it should be." It's not. It's not that extreme. I would say that there's definitely less helicopter parenting in Japan than there is. I mean, it's gotten weird, honestly. And just the fact that people don't use cars as much in Japan maybe plays into this a little bit as well. But this show is entertaining. If you haven't seen it before, I recommend it. You should watch it. It's kind of like 30% true, but it's all rigged. It's all rigged. It's a reality show, so don't get too worked up about it. Lots of people on the internet getting worked up about that. Dan H. Kishida's new capitalism will make sure Japan stays on course, or may cause falls even faster into that same problem of depopulation and economic collapse. I mean, he hasn't even come up with a definition of what new capitalism is anymore. I mean, literally, there's nothing new. All that he's proposing is, capitalism with social justice, which is basically what Japanese capitalism has been since 1953. And he hasn't come up with any vision for it being any different than what it's always been. It's just a slogan. When people are worried that Japan's becoming when people worry that Japan is becoming too capitalist, what they're worrying about is things like employment contracts. They're worrying about this idea that there's increasing, where Japan has always been very egalitarian and it's been very successful at stopping there being too rich people and not so rich people. They're worried that Japan is diverging from that, from that sort of government-managed social justice, and it's becoming more winners and losers kind of a society, and course-correcting on that. But that's always been the sort of mission of the bureaucracy in the Japanese government. He's just reaffirming that. But he actually did set up a whole office to come up with the definition of that, and they haven't done it yet. But I agree, in the sense that it is business as usual and doing what they've always done, and what they've always done has led to the current demographic crisis. It's almost certain that it will perpetuate it because that's what caused it. So I agree with you, Dan H. I think you're right. Dan H., once again, didn't Japanese move a lot of Koreans to, I can't read that, and then Stalin moved them to Central Asian. Is that I can't read the first character. Are you talking about Manchuria or are you talking about Sakhalin? I'm sorry, you have to say quick kanji on the fly. I can't read that. That does not look like Karafuto, which I know is Sakhalin. So I'm guessing you're talking about Manchuria. Japan did move a lot of Koreans into Manchuria, and a lot of Japanese people into Manchuria. And Stalin indeed did capture a lot of them and move them to other places. That is certainly a thing that happened. So I'm assuming you mean Manchuria, but I'm not sure. The smiley face is there from Aaron. Nice to see. Believe in yourself. Good to see you. Eric Bailey, you mean all those ghost videos are fake? Breaking my heart, man. The ghost videos thing as well. The fact that they always do the orbs. You know, the orbs drives me crazy. The orbs, it's simple. If you see those things where there are orbs and people feel tight in the chest, the orbs are out of focus dust flying through the air and catching light, and it's out of focus. They'll look like orbs. It's just out of focus dust catching light, and that's why people feel tight in the chest. And that's and they'll always go into these dusty old places and they'll film these orbs, and basically it's the same scam, and they'll say that's ghosts. It's not. It's just dusty bad housekeeping in crappy Japanese old inns, and you can get the same. If you call those ghosts, you can go to any old inn in Japan and get ghost videos, and that's what they do. But it's good entertainment. It's good entertainment, so just disregard that I said that and watch it. They're definitely ghosts. Sorry, Aaron. Not that much. On the low-wage sector, isn't that increasing since 2007? I totally understand when people get worried. Yes. So that is right. I mean, that was Koizumi and what's his face, the economic minister, Heizo Takenaka. That's when they really went actual capitalist, like for the first time post-war, and it really did cause a lot of insecurity and problems. And yeah, Kishida saying that we'll go back to the roots and go back to actually being socially aware, and not a bad thing actually. It's gonna, and obviously it got him re-elected. But the thing is, he doesn't even have a definition of it. He doesn't even know what it is, other than we're just going to go back to doing it the old way and not the new way that Koizumi did that caused all of this disruption. So sure, yeah, people absolutely get worried about it. Anyway, back into it. JR has a humanoid, looks like Johnny Five. You see the head at the top there, except that it's got like robot fighting arms. And apparently they use this. This is a thing. This is actually being used. And when you see it in action, it actually like holds things and manipulates things like a real robot. I mean, sometimes I see this stuff and people are actually doing this. And yeah, in fact, of course, Japanese, apparently, it looks like a famous robot called Reba. But that's awesome. Gotta love Japan. The fact that this isn't just an idea, this is something that Japan Rail is actually using, is cool. The monitor I'm looking at right now, my Dell sucks. Newsflash, News 11, my Dell 27-inch 4K monitor. First I got it, the backlight was like broken right away. It was totally dark. I couldn't see anything, so they replaced it. Now, if you look at the same thing on Amazon, it's got that they'll give you like a free warranty with the thing for faulty backlight, i.e. they're selling this thing knowing that the backlight is like broken on most of them. The replacement unit I got still had a faulty backlight. However, I kind of figured out, so if I could reboot the computer and get it to like turn on and turn off again, turn off and turn on again, and it would come out better. However, I was adjusting the screen, and instead of a technical issue, I actually pressed on the screen the LCD too hard, and it caused the big like lines and everything to appear on the screen. So I called up Dell, and actually I was complaining about Dell on Twitter, and then Dell support, like a support bot, just pinged me back and said, "Hey, looks like you're having some trouble. We offer support via Twitter messages, so let us see if we can help you." And I said, yeah. I pressed on my screen, now these lines all over it. And they said, oh, that sounds like that's going to be a paid repair. We're going to give you a quote. I was like, great. It took them 3 days to get me the quote. The quote, I bought it for 35,000 yen. The quote was for like nearly 31,000 yen. I was like, okay, I'll just pay the recycle fee. So instead of that, I went and I just figured I wanted to get a 32-inch screen, but I didn't want to spend a lot of money. So I just got this, and this is just a 1080p, not 4K, just a solid monitor that I got there, ADS panel. It is beautiful. I mean, it's 1080p. The reason I got 1080p, one of the reasons I got it was I play Fortnite with my son, and the 4K monitor just causes my computer to freak out. It's not that powerful, so I thought I'd just get a 1080p screen just to have it go at full screen and not like drain the monitor or anything like that. So I really just got a regular monitor, it actually looks better, way better. The contrast, the darks, everything. The Dell I had was absolute garbage. This is 1080p and it's better than the 4K Dell that I had, which costs $50 more. So I'm very happy with this. It's a 32-inch screen. I'm looking at it right now. It's wonderful. So yeah, it's pretty cool. This is 32. The one I had before was 27. So this is much, much bigger. Dell is bringing out, I'm not going to get anything from Dell at this point, but yeah, Iraq 299, good to see you there. Dan H, was that Karafuto? Really? Okay, I didn't realize that was how you wrote Karafuto. I know it was called Karafuto. In fact, in New Zealand, I knew some Japanese people whose parents were born there. Like, there were a lot of Japanese people there. But, okay, Sakolin, so there you go. The guess was right, even though I totally didn't think that would be the kanji. So, well, there we go, kind of half right there. Oh, look at this. We've got not that much test. You work as a project manager for a camera lenses since 10 years now. You've no idea. The orbs are totally real. We build them into the lenses for you. Yeah, thank you, not that much test. Yeah, a bit late to the party, but still good to have you, Iraq 299, as always. Eric Bailey, I'm so glad that the JSTF is finally releasing some of that Gundam technology to the general public. Yeah, just a little bit at a time, but yes, indeed. Butter B, good to see you. Indeed, the monitor size, 32, glorious, beautiful screen. I really love it, and it really is. The 1080p is fine. Vince Beck, can't you see the pixels with such a big monitor in 1080p? You can. But the contrast and the colors and the stability is much, much better. So yeah, certainly Fortnite, I can see the pixels. But the whole thing is just so stable and solid, and that's all that I want. I mean, I'm not going for a gaming monitor with this, and I'm using it for work. And again, you'd think I could see the dots when I'm reading. But again, the overall display is just so much better quality. It's just a dream. It's a lot better. I've got a 24K monitor, sorry, a 4K monitor, 27-inch from an LG over here. I've got 3 monitors on the current setup. The LG is fine. The Dell was crap, and this 1080p is good enough. So yeah, I'm happy with it. So that's the thing that I got. Yeah, next one. Racing through the final stories, $125,000 to get into a balloon that will go up 30 kilometers that will show the darkness of space and the curvature of the Earth. I like everything about that. Space is 100 kilometers, not 30 kilometers. So you're not really up in space, but I do like the idea that you can get high up enough in the stratosphere that you can actually see the blackness of space and the curvature of the Earth. I also like the fact that, unlike the current rocket rides that last like 3 minutes, this will, you could float up there and just stay up there for a long time. That's also pretty cool. So I love this idea. $125,000, however, for a balloon ride, I would pay $5,000. And I'd want it to last for a decent amount of time. But it's not the same as going into space. It's pretty good, though. I do like the idea of this if they get the technology on it right. I guess this sort of thing is going to become very normal. I mean, I think going into space is going to become relatively normal within my lifetime. But this is pretty cool anyway. I thought this was a good thing. Documentary on my shoes. I actually got, of course, a custom version, at least in terms of the colors and design of my shoes, which I've shown before. But a great documentary on Cheddar, just explaining how it works. Apparently it's to do with the foam middle layer inner sole can actually save a lot more energy than the old-fashioned foam could. I love the shoes. I went for a run today. Actually, it was to 12K, but I could do it pretty comfortably. And final one. Oh yeah, so this is the human style JR robot again. So that's all the stories that I have this week. I'm 5 minutes over, but I'm just coming up on time. So yeah, Mr. Cordy Chap, good to see you. 5K for a balloon ride. Well, I think like to the stratosphere, like in a special like pressurized space capsule balloon for a good amount of time, like for a couple of hours, I would consider up to that amount, not above it. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah. Space Butter PB, indeed. Hey everybody, that is all the topics that we have this week. Everything I can see that's going on. Of course, there's tons of stuff going on in Japan, but yes, great that the travel is continuing to open up. Everything else. Hope everybody is staying safe. In Japan, everyone's still wearing masks. I've heard other places are like doing away with masks, but I still wouldn't want to get COVID myself. It still seems pretty scary. The XE variant, which sounds like a new model of iPhone. I've got like the XS. So the XE, model of COVID looks like it's already in Japan, and we're going to find out, is that going to be better or worse or whatever. But I think at this point we are moving towards literally just living with it, even if it's terrible. But we'll have to see. Do stay safe. Take care. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook, but Twitter is the only real place other than YouTube that I really meaningfully post stuff. So definitely follow me here. Instagram. I like Instagram. You can follow me there if you like. If you want to check out where I run, I post photos. Take care, everybody. Have a good week. Remember, if you like the show, please do like. It's the only thing I really do it for. I do appreciate when people do post a little. Click on the like button. So please do that. Smash that like button, indeed, as Shubha says. Cobra Stenshi, going to space in a balloon will take quite a while. Take your MacBook Air during the ride. Well, why not? I mean, it's not exactly space. But yes, XE, the premium COVID. Dan H. forgot to talk about Gennady Golovkin versus Rota Murata. Was it in Japanese media? Wow. I don't know where you get all these great stories from, but I do not know. GGG's mother comes from Sakhalin. Okay, well, it's funny. There were like millions of people in Sakhalin, right? There was so I've run into people with Sakhalin connections from Japan, the whole bottom half. In fact, I think I'd mentioned last week, there's a great documentary thing which is talking about if the Japanese had realized that Sakhalin has 5 times the oil that it was in Indonesia, they wouldn't have gone and attacked Pearl Harbor and raced across Asia and conquered Asia to get to the oil in Indonesia if they'd realized that they were sitting on that much oil in the first place. But yeah, they made a real serious go of trying to colonize there, of course, like many other parts in the world. It was amazing how metropolitan it was at the time. Will Smith that button. That is too soon. Aaron. Anyway, have a good week, everybody. Do take care. Boom. Peace. Ending stream.